Hey everybody, and welcome back to another deep dive with us. So today we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting.
Yeah, this should be fun.
Yeah. Basically, we're going to be going over the top 21 most frequently used words in the English language.
Yeah, and it's really amazing how such a small set of words can make up like the foundation for like daily conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, whether you're a beginner or, you consider yourself more advanced, understanding these words and how to use them effectively, is really going to help you sound more fluent, more natural. So joining me today to, help us unpack all of this and really give us some good insights is...
Hi, everyone.
So I'm really excited to jump into this with you. So I guess to start off, our source has broken down these 21 words into different categories.
Right.
So we've got verbs and we've got conversational words and we've got nouns and adjectives. So I figure, why don't we just go in order?
Mm-hmm.
Verbs, those are like the action words, right? The workhorses of the sentence. So let's start there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So the first one on the list is go. And, I think most people, when they think about go, they're thinking, it's about like physical movement.
Right. Like I go to the store.
Right. Exactly.
But, it can also indicate like a change of state. Like the lights went out or even like a progression of time, like as the years go by.
That's so true. I never really thought about like all the different ways that we use that one little word go. All right. What about get? That one seems even more, multifaceted.
Yeah, get is a very interesting one, because it often implies a process or a change of state that's sort of outside of your direct control.
Oh, okay.
So you think about phrases like get sick or get lost. It's like something is happening to you. It's not like you're directly making it happen.
Right. It's like something's being done to you.
Exactly.
But then on the other hand, you have phrases like get rich or get ahead.
Right.
And those have a very different connotation.
Yeah.
Right. It's much more like intentional, almost aspirational.
Yeah, it's like get reflects our relationship with change itself, whether it's something we're actively pursuing or something that's kind of being imposed upon us.
That's so interesting. I like that a lot. Okay, so moving right along. Next up we have do. And this one always feels to me like the ultimate multitasker.
Definitely.
You can do so many things.
Absolutely. It's amazing how often do just pops up in our sentences. From describing our jobs, like, what do you do?
Right.
To expressing obligations, I have to do my homework. It really is like the Swiss Army knife of verbs.
Yeah, and it plays such a key role in questions too. Do you like pizza? Did you see that movie? Like it's just, it makes the question a question.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've had go, we've had get, we've had do. What about have?
Oh, have. That's another one that's surprisingly versatile.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we use it for possession. I have a car.
Right.
But we also use it for experiences. I had a great time. And then, all those idioms too. Have a nice day. Have a good one. These are just ingrained into our everyday conversations.
Yeah, and I think have really highlights how so much of language is really about more than just, the literal meaning. It's about, creating a feeling or, connecting with someone on a social level.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's tackle make. I feel like this is one I use constantly. Make dinner, make a decision, make a mistake. It's all about like creating something or causing something to happen.
Yes.
But then there's also this element of obligation sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like I made him apologize.
Exactly. Make implies that you're kind of bringing something into being. You're causing something to happen. And you're right about the obligation aspect too. It can be used to express, influence or even a sense of like responsibility for something.
Well, like you're the driving force behind whatever is happening.
Exactly.
Okay. And last but not least on our list of verbs, we have take.
Take. Now, this is an interesting one because take often involves a sense of action combined with possession or control. So, think about phrases like take a break, take a seat, take charge.
Right. It's like you're asserting yourself in some way, whether you're taking something for yourself or taking control of a situation.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've got go get, do, have, make, and take. That is a lot of verbal power packed into 6 little words.
It really is. It's amazing how much we can express with just the small set of verbs.
Okay, so we've covered the verbs. Now let's move on to those little words that I like to think of as kind of like the glue that holds our conversations together. Those little conversational connectors?
Right.
So things like hi and bye and thanks and sorry. I mean, how deep can we really go with these?
You might be surprised. Even these seemingly simple expressions play a really vital role in how we interact with each other.
Okay.
For example, hi and hello, they're not just greetings. They signal that you're open to communication and connection.
Oh, so it's like setting the tone right from the start, like you're extending an invitation to engage in a conversation.
Exactly.
Okay, and then on the flip side, we have bye.
Right, which signals, closure. It marks the end of the conversation, and, it allows us to transition smoothly out of the interaction.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've covered greeting and departing. But what about those little words that add a touch of, politeness and gratitude to our interactions?
You mean thanks and sorry?
Exactly.
Ah, yes. Those are powerful tools. They help us maintain social harmony, and they help us, navigate those little bumps in the road of human interaction.
Yeah. Thanks acknowledges a favor, right, or a kind gesture, and it, reinforces those positive interactions that we have. And sorry is all about taking responsibility for something, smoothing over those mistakes and showing empathy.
Exactly. They're subtle, but they're really essential for building good relationships.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how we often, modify these words for emphasis, like saying thanks a lot. It carries a lot more weight than a simple thanks.
Oh, definitely.
Or I'm so sorry versus just sorry. It adds that extra layer of sincerity.
Exactly. These little nuances can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've explored 6 key verbs and 4 of these essential conversational words.
We have.
Are you starting to see the power of these seemingly simple words?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like we're peeling back the layers and discovering all this hidden depth to language.
I agree.
All right, so I think we're ready to tackle our next category, which is nouns. So where do we even begin with this?
Well, our source has chosen a handful of nouns that represent fundamental concepts, the building blocks of how we understand the world.
Okay.
So let's start with time.
Okay, time.
Such a basic concept, yet it governs so much of our lives.
Right. We're constantly thinking of time. What time is it? Do we have enough time? It's like this invisible force shaping our days.
Right. And the source actually delves into some pretty deep questions about time.
Oh, really?
Like, how do different cultures perceive time? What's the relationship between time and memory? It's fascinating stuff.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. All right, so alongside time, we have day, which seems very ordinary. But, it really does mark the rhythm of our lives. Have a good day. It's a brand new day.
Right. And day can also refer to a specific period in history, like back in the day or the day the music died. It connects us to this flow of time, both personal and historical.
Wow, I like that. Okay, what's next?
Next up is thing, which I have to admit always makes me chuckle a little bit.
Why is that?
Well, it's like the ultimate catch-all word, for when our vocabulary fails us.
Oh, yeah. It's like the ultimate placeholder. What's that thing over there? The thing is. But, it's actually really effective at conveying meaning, even when we can't come up with, a more specific word.
Right. It shows that communication isn't always about, perfect grammar or an extensive vocabulary. It's about getting your message across. And sometimes thing does the job perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So speaking of conveying meaning, we've got place next on our list. It seems like a pretty straightforward word, but I'm sure there's more to it than meets the eye.
There is. Place isn't just about physical location. It can also refer to a position in a sequence, like take your place in line, or even a state of mind, like feeling out of place. It's a word that helps us navigate the world in all sorts of ways.
Right. It's like place isn't just about where we are physically, but also about how we fit in.
Exactly.
And how we make sense of our surroundings.
Exactly.
Okay. And then finally we have people, which, it's it seems so obvious, but, when you think about it, people are really what makes the world go round, right?
That's true.
People represents our shared humanity.
Right.
That's the foundation of society and relationships and, everything that makes us human.
It's the word that reminds us we're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've explored verbs, conversational connectors, and now nouns. I'm already feeling like I have a whole new appreciation for the power of these everyday words. But before we jump into adjectives, I'm curious, what's standing out to you so far?
Honestly, I think what struck me the most is how much depth and nuance there is, even in the simplest words. We use them all the time, but we don't often stop and think about how they work.
Yeah. It's like we're taking them for granted.
Totally.
But I think this deep dive is really helping us to, kind of slow down and appreciate the intricacies of these words that we usually just take for granted.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So adjectives, I think we're ready.
Let's do it. You know, it's funny how we can go through like our whole lives using these words and never really stop to think about them.
Right. It's true. But that's, I think, what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Yeah.
It's like we're forced to slow down and actually like appreciate these things that we usually just, take for granted.
Yeah.
So last we left off, we were about to delve into the world of adjectives. So are you ready to add some color to our conversation?
Absolutely. Adjectives are what bring our language to life.
Yeah, they do.
They paint pictures in our minds, they evoke emotions, and they help us make sense of the world.
I love that. So true. And they add, that extra layer of detail that just makes our communication so much richer. Okay, so why don't we start with good? I feel like that's like the most basic adjective in the English language.
It really is. Good is our go-to word for expressing approval or satisfaction or, just like the absence of anything negative.
Right.
It's a wonderfully versatile word.
It is.
You can use it for pretty much anything.
I've noticed that good is often used as kind of a conversational placeholder, especially when we're trying to be polite. Or avoid being too critical. Like, oh, that's a good point. Even if you don't really agree with what the person is saying.
Right. It's like a way of maintaining harmony.
Yeah.
Smoothing over those potential disagreements or awkward moments.
Right. Okay, so good is all about positivity and agreeableness. What about new? What kind of energy does new bring?
New is all about excitement, possibility, a sense of change. It draws our attention to something fresh, something that stands out from the ordinary.
Right.
Think about like getting a new phone or starting a new job.
Right.
There's that element of curiosity and intrigue.
There is. It makes you want to learn more to explore. And it can also be a really powerful marketing tool.
Right.
New and improved, the latest and greatest.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's like designed to pique our interest.
Absolutely. New really taps into that human desire for novelty and fascination with progress.
Yeah. But then on the other hand, new can also highlight a lack of experience.
That's true.
Like new to the job or a new driver.
Right.
It implies a learning curve.
Definitely.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Right.
Right. It can be exhilarating,
right,
but it can also be intimidating.
Depending on the context.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered good and new. Ready to wrap things up with happy.
Let's do it. Happy is such a fundamental human emotion.
It is.
It resonates across cultures. It's the language of joy and contentment and well-being.
Yeah, and it's amazing how contagious happiness can be. Like when someone greets you with a genuine smile and I say good morning, it can like brighten your whole day.
It's true. It's like this ripple effect.
Yeah.
Spreading positivity.
And happy isn't just about those fleeting moments of joy either.
Right.
It's about, that deeper sense of fulfillment.
Yeah, that sense of purpose.
Yeah. I think that's what makes happy such a powerful word. It encompasses such a, wide spectrum of positive emotions.
I agree.
Okay, so we've tackled adjectives, but I want to circle back to something you said earlier about how adjectives can paint pictures in our minds and evoke emotions. Do you think there's a connection between these simple adjectives and how we experience the world?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think the answer is yes. The words we use shape how we see things. They provide the framework for how we understand and interpret our experiences.
So, for example, if we're constantly using negative adjectives to describe ourselves or the world around us, we might actually start to see things more negatively.
Exactly. The language we use becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow.
It influences our thoughts, our emotions, and ultimately our actions.
That's a powerful reminder to be mindful of the words we choose.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Verbs, conversational connectors, nouns, adjectives.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much we can learn from just 21 words.
It really is.
And we haven't even touched on phrasal verbs yet.
Oh, yes.
So those are next on our list. And I think you'll be surprised by how much they add to the richness and complexity of the language.
I think so too.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Bring on the phrasal verbs. All right, so welcome back to the deep dive. We've already covered so much.
Yeah.
But before the break, you mentioned phrasal verbs. What are those exactly and why are they so important?
So phrasal verbs are basically like these combinations of a verb and another word, usually like a preposition or an adverb. And when you put them together, they create a totally new meaning.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay, so let's take the verb look. Pretty straightforward word, right? But when you start adding prepositions like up after or into, you get phrasal verbs with completely different meanings. So like look up means to search for information.
Right.
Look after means to take care of someone. And look into means to investigate something.
Wow, you're right.
So you see how just a little tweak can make our language so much more expressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So are phrasal verbs just about like adding more words to our vocabulary?
It's more than just adding words. It's about nuance. It's about idiom. You know, phrasal verbs capture these subtle shades of meaning that would be really hard to express otherwise.
Oh, yeah.
And they make your English sound much more natural, more like a native speaker.
So if they're so nuanced, how do we even begin to like learn all of them?
Well, the good news is you don't have to learn every single phrasal verb out there.
Yeah.
You know, just focus on the most common ones, the ones that come up a lot in everyday conversations.
Okay, that makes sense.
And pay attention to the context, you know, because phrasal verbs can have different meanings depending on the situation.
Right.
So try to learn them in like real life examples, not just from lists.
So like instead of just memorizing look up, I should try to remember it in a sentence. Like I need to look at the meaning of this word.
Exactly. Because then you're associating the phrasal verb with a specific meaning and a specific usage.
That's really helpful.
And most importantly, don't be afraid to experiment.
Okay.
The best way to learn phrasal verbs is to actually use them. Start incorporating them into your conversations, even if you're not 100% sure you're using them correctly.
So what if I make a mistake?
You know, making mistakes is part of the learning process. Even native speakers make mistakes with phrasal verbs all the time.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
So don't worry too much about it. Just practice and you'll get more comfortable over time.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about verbs, conversational connectors, nouns, adjectives, and now phrasal verbs. It's pretty amazing how much we can learn from just 21 words.
It really is. I think it just goes to show the power of language.
Yeah.
And how these simple building blocks can be used to express so many different things.
So what's like the main takeaway you hope listeners will, walk away with from this deep dive?
I think the most important thing to remember is that fluency isn't about memorizing a huge vocabulary or mastering all the grammar rules. It's about understanding the basic principles of how language works, and then using those principles to communicate effectively.
So it's not about quantity, it's about quality.
Exactly. By focusing on these 21 words, you're not just learning vocabulary, you're gaining a deeper understanding of how English works.
I love that.
Yeah.
So is there anything you'd like to challenge our listeners to do after this deep dive?
I would challenge them to really pay attention to how these 21 words are being used all around them. Listen to conversations, read books and articles, and see if you can notice how these words are like the threads that hold everything together.
I like that. It's like a treasure hunt.
It is.
And the more you find, the better you'll become at understanding and speaking the language.
Exactly.
Well, this has been such an eye-opening deep dive for me. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
And I definitely have a new appreciation for these words that we use every day. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey. And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.